this story I've been following with some interest for a couple of years. You know, one of the things that the Obama administration, and the name of the official in the education department slips my mind, and I think he's now on the Federal Trade Commission. One of the things that the Obama administration did that I thought was an unmitigated success and good thing was their crackdown on for-profit universities. Very recently, in fact, I think we talked about this last week, there was a holding in the D.C. Circuit Court that the education department could not reverse the payments that were owed students who had been ripped off by for-profit universities. Here's the scam with the for-profit colleges. A huge percentage. Now, look, they're not all horrific. Personally, I think none of them should exist. At the very least, the question is, should they be eligible for federal funds in terms of loans? And what the Obama administration did was basically start to actually scrutinize the accrediting firms of these colleges. So these colleges would get accredited by accrediting outfits, and that would mean that they were eligible to get student loans. And what they do, it's sort of like the radio business. In the radio business, the key was always holding people over that first break at 15 minutes. That's all that anybody cared about. You just got to hold people over that break, over the quarter hour, and that's how you get your ratings. At these for-profit universities, when it comes to loans anyways, they get their second, they're always looking for the next installment of the loan because the loan gets dished out per semester or so. And they want to hold the students over to the next semester. And many of these students tend to be people who did not have the opportunity to go to college when they were younger. They've entered the workforce. They are looking specifically less so for, sort of broaden their liberal arts understanding, let's say, but want to enhance their careers. So there would be a very simple metric to measure the success of these schools. That is, what is the rate of return on this investment? You borrow $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to go to this for-profit university. How much money are you making more than you would on the trajectory you were making 3 years out, 2 years out, 5 years out? This is a fairly easy metric, but it's very hard to find that metric at these schools, oddly enough. And so the Obama administration had begun to crack down on them. In fact, two major universities, if I remember correctly, had to go down. ITT and I can't remember the name of the second one, but it was a very large enterprise. And so these for-profit universities, which are big business, publicly owned businesses, in fact, in many instances, you can buy their stocks. Their stocks started to decline because there was more and more scrutiny. And the vast amount, 80, 90% of their revenue comes from the U.S. government in the form of these loans. So here's an interesting thing. I haven't been able to find one that takes us to the present day, but this one captures the first 4 months following the election, starting in November of 16. You can see the day of the election. That's where the stocks are basically, and if you had gone a month or two earlier, if we could have found that, you would have seen a slow decline. Actually, if you had gone 16 months earlier, you would have seen a slow decline. And then look at that. They jump within literally a week of the election. The stocks jump by 10%. They go from 0 to 15% before November 16, before December 1st of 2016. And then they continue to skyrocket Some go, by February, they're up 25, 30, 40% almost in their value. And if you look at the S&P 500, it's about 10%, by that time. So like 3 times. And I think these stocks have continued to skyrocket. Why is that? Well, because Betsy DeVos is the Secretary of Education, and these universities knew that essentially the cops had been told no longer scrutinize. You don't have to worry about this. In fact, the Trump administration now plans to release a draft of proposals to further deregulate higher education on Monday. That would be, I think it was was that yesterday? I don't know if they've released them yet. It's going to make it very easy for non-accredited, unvetted institutional providers to access federal student aid money. It's going to allow these entities to further outsource to things like, quasi-Berlitz outfits to provide education for its students. It's also going to get rid of the prohibition on outsourcing more than 50% of their programs to non-accredited providers. So you basically create a very small university that can meet accrediting standards, but then 70% of your revenue comes from people at non-accredited institutions. It also limits things like credit hour definition. It would let colleges and accreditors decide on how to evaluate a student's progress. Right. They can inflate credit hours. They can charge students significantly more money. And look, a lot of the people who sign up for these colleges, they are not terribly savvy. They know that they're looking around in the job force and they're seeing people who have college degrees do better than they're doing, and they want to help themselves and their family. And they don't have the time to go to a typical college. And so, that's the situation you have. You basically,
so desperation is great
well,
opportunity.
It's basically
it's a great market opportunity.
You have the education department basically just enabling con artists. Here's another one.
I'm a little disappointed. You'd think that Trump would have cracked down on them just out of pure spite because his was sued out of existence in 2010.
He can appreciate it. He can appreciate it.
Solidarity.
Listen, I can appreciate a good con.
Solidarity forever.
Here you can see the prison stocks also followed a similar trajectory where Trump's win helped the prison stocks
Private prisons
skyrocket. So, private prisons, of course. So that's always fun. That's another added bonus. We're going to see thousands of people get saddled with student debt that in no way is going to help them, neither as a citizen or as in terms of return on investment. All right, meanwhile, let's
Do you remember how at the end of Trump U, if I recall the filings correctly, you get to meet him was one of the things that you were promised, and you would get a photo next to a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump.
It's like you could just pay an appearance fee, but you also have to go through like months of schooling before you actually get to see him.
But then you don't know, but you didn't meet him. It was literally a cardboard.
Didn't I interview a guy?
Was that David K. Johnston?
No. There was a guy who worked for Trump University.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was for Ring of Fire.
I don't know. I think we did
that
at at some vacation show. It was sort of...
we tacked it on to something.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite interview, but I was curious to see, and I thought maybe people would find it somewhat worthwhile. But this guy earnestly thought, I was in there to do good.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he ended up teaching one of didn't he know more about real estate than the teachers?
Some weird, I don't know.